My name is Myrtle Hull. I'm 33 years old, and the man I almost married once looked me in the eyes outside a coffee shop in Nashville and said, "Maybe you're just not the one anymore." What broke me wasn't the sentence. It was realizing later that he never meant it as goodbye. He meant it as a test. Ethan Mercer and I had been together a little over 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and living together in an apartment in Green Hills that technically belonged to me because I had signed the lease before he moved in. But by then, every corner felt like ours. Wedding folders covered the dining table. Guest list notes were stuck to the fridge. Sample invitations were tucked in a drawer beside takeout menus. For a while, I truly believed we were building something solid. Not perfect, not glamorous, just real. Ethan was charming in that effortless way that made people forgive him too quickly. He could walk into a room and make strangers feel like they already knew him. I was the steadier one, the planner, the woman who remembered vendor deadlines, called the landlord, tracked the budget, checked the oil, and made sure our lives didn't quietly fall apart. It worked, until it didn't. About 6 weeks before everything collapsed, he started acting different. Not dramatic at first, just distant. Longer work nights, more drinks with friends, more phone turned face down on the couch. Every time I asked if something was wrong, he said I was overthinking. Every time I brought up the wedding, he looked tired instead of happy. Once, when I asked if he still wanted the October date, he laughed softly and said, "Myrtle, why does everything have to be so intense with you lately?" That should have told me enough. It didn't. When you love someone, you start translating for them. Distance becomes stress, coldness becomes pressure, irritation becomes fear. You make excuses because the alternative is admitting you're standing inside the slow death of something you already promised your future to. The day it ended, we were supposed to meet a cake vendor. It sounds ridiculous now. My whole life cracked open somewhere between lunch and buttercream samples. Ethan texted me an hour before and said he didn't feel like doing wedding stuff. Could we just talk instead? We met at a coffee shop in Green Hills. He was already there when I walked in, staring out the window like he had practiced looking sad. I sat down. He didn't smile. Didn't touch the drink in front of him. Just looked at me and said, "I think we've been moving toward this for a while." I asked, "Toward what?" He said, "Maybe you're just not the one anymore." That was it. No fight, no confession, no warning loud enough for me to grab onto. Just that sentence, sitting between us, like he had carried it in his pocket and finally decided to set it down. I remember staring at his hands because his ring was still on his finger. I noticed stupid things. The chip on his thumbnail, the jacket I bought him in Nashville, the song playing overhead. One we once joked would probably end up at our wedding because we heard it everywhere. I said, "Okay." He blinked like that wasn't in the script. Then he started filling the silence. He said he loved me, but maybe not in the right way anymore. He said, maybe we got serious too young. He said, maybe before making anything permanent, he needed to know if this was truly what he wanted. Then he said the part that actually finished it. I guess I thought if we had this conversation, you'd fight for us. That was the moment I went cold. Not angry, not loud, just clear. I said, "Then don't come back, Ethan." He stared at me like I had spoken another language. "Myrtle, don't do that." "Do what? Believe you?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I reached across the table, took the ring box he had quietly slid out of his jacket pocket, placed it in my purse, and stood. I left cash for both coffees, even though neither of us had touched them. "I hope you find whatever you're looking for," I said. Then I walked out. In the parking lot, he called 3 times before I reached my car. I didn't answer. By the time I got home, The calls had turned into paragraphs. I didn't mean today. I just needed honesty. Why are you acting like this is over? Please pick up. Myrtle, please. I went straight to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed for maybe 10 minutes. The apartment was full of wedding evidence, a suit swatch on the dresser, a florist invoice clipped to the fridge, my late father's pearl cufflinks in the top drawer, wrapped in tissue for a day I suddenly wasn't going to have. That part hit hardest. Not losing Ethan. Not yet. Losing the version of my life I had already started grieving before I admitted it was gone. Then I got up and handled the practical things, because practical is what I become when my chest feels hollow. I called the venue and canceled. The non-refundable deposit disappeared just like that. I emailed the photographer and lost the retainer too. The caterer returned only part of the payment because we were still outside the final date. I called the apartment office and had Ethan's parking access removed. Then I packed 2 large boxes of his everyday things. Not everything. Just enough to make the point that I believed him. At 7:18 that night, he texted, I'm staying with Brooke. We both need space. Brooke. His ex-girlfriend. The old friend I had spent 4 years pretending didn't make my stomach tighten. I replied once, take all the space you want. Your things will be ready when you collect them. Then I muted the thread. That first night was the worst kind of quiet. No yelling, no smashed plates, no cinematic ending. Just me taking wedding magazines off the counter and putting them into a trash bag, like I was cleaning up after an event canceled because of rain. At 2 a.m, I found myself standing in the kitchen, holding one of our save-the-date drafts, my name beside his. A date that now looked fake. I thought Heartbreak would sound louder than that. Turns out it sounds like a refrigerator humming while you hold paper that no longer belongs to your life. By morning, Ethan had called 18 times. I still didn't answer. Update, 2 days later. I finally realized Ethan never meant what he said the way I heard it. To me, the conversation at the coffee shop was a breakup. To him, it was leverage. A loyalty test he thought he could control. His younger sister, Olivia, called me from an unknown number while I was sitting in my car outside work, eating a protein bar I couldn't taste. I almost ignored it, but Olivia had always been kind to me, so I answered. She was crying before she even finished saying my name. Myrtle, please just talk to him, she whispered. He didn't think you'd actually end it. I stared through the windshield at the gray warehouse across the parking lot. Then he shouldn't have said it. Silence. Then Olivia said softly, he thought you'd show up at Brooke's apartment or something. Flowers? A letter? He thought you'd remind him why you wanted this. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. I'm not auditioning to be chosen. Olivia got quiet after that. Really quiet. Then she whispered, I know. I'm sorry. That apology stayed with me longer than I expected. The same afternoon, Ethan posted a black and white picture on Instagram. Just his hand, without the engagement ring. Caption: some people leave, the second love gets difficult. 3 mutual friends texted me within an hour. 2 asked vague questions. 1 asked directly. Tyler wrote, did you seriously end a 4-year relationship over 1 conversation? I stared at the message for a long moment before sending him a screenshot of Ethan's texts from the coffee shop night. Especially the part where he admitted he expected me to fight for him. Tyler responded almost immediately. Jesus, that's not what he told people. Then another message. Sorry, Myrtle. That became a pattern after that. Someone would contact me. I'd say almost nothing. The truth handled the rest by itself. Ethan started manufacturing accidental encounters a few days later. The first happened at the grocery store near Belmont. I turned into the pasta aisle, and there he was, standing in my old university hoodie, like he'd dressed himself in nostalgia on purpose. He looked terrible. Red eyes, messy hair, exhausted face. The version of himself carefully arranged to make me soften. "Myrtle," he said quietly, "can we please talk like adults?" I kept my hand on the cart handle. "We already did." Then I walked past him. 2 days later, he was outside my gym at 6 in the morning, holding 2 coffees. He smiled when he saw me. "Oat milk, 1 sweetener," he said softly, lifting 1 cup. "I remember." That hit somewhere painful, because yes, he did remember. He knew my coffee order, my alarm schedule, the songs I played while driving after bad days, the way I folded towels, the fact I hated cold sheets and always warmed my side of the bed first. Heartbreak isn't just losing a person. It's losing the witness to your life. I stopped several feet away from him. "You don't get to act like this is a rough patch," I said quietly. His expression hardened immediately. "So that's it?" he snapped. 4 years and you don't even care enough to fight for us?" I looked at him for a long second. Caring and begging aren't the same thing. Then I walked into the gym. Through the glass doors, I could still see him standing there holding both coffees long after I disappeared inside. That weekend, his mother Caroline called me. I answered because I expected yelling. Instead, she sounded tired. Very tired. She told me Ethan had explained the breakup as wedding stress and claimed I walked away because he panicked for one night. I stayed quiet for a moment before finally saying, "That's not what happened." Then I repeated his exact words from the coffee shop. "Maybe you're just not the one anymore. I guess I thought you'd fight for us." Caroline interrupted me halfway through with a long exhale. "He really said that?" "Yes." Another silence. Then quietly, "That's cruel." Nobody had used that word before, but it fit perfectly. Cruel. Not because he fell out of love, because he tried to make me earn my place back after threatening to take it away. Caroline offered to collect the rest of his belongings herself, so there wouldn't be more scenes. I thanked her. That evening, I packed everything carefully. His jackets, his shoes, bathroom supplies, the framed Savannah photo from our beach trip, the ugly ceramic bowl shaped like a lemon he irrationally loved. I sealed every box with tape and stacked them near the apartment door. When Caroline arrived, she stood in the living room too long, looking at the emptier walls, the cleared bathroom shelf, the silence. "I really thought you two would make it," she said softly. I swallowed hard. "Me too." After she left, I sat on the floor in the middle of the apartment because, suddenly, there was nothing left to organize. Nothing left to cancel. Nothing left to fix. That was the lowest point. Not the coffee shop. Not the lost deposits. The moment after the final box left and the apartment echoed slightly when I moved. Because that was the moment I understood. There would be no dramatic reunion. No speech in the rain. No revelation. No version where love arrived at the last second to save itself. So I built a routine instead. Work. Gym. Sleep. Repeat. I stopped drinking during the week, joined a Saturday running group because mornings felt less brutal around moving people, took over a failing logistics account at work nobody wanted, and somehow fixed it in under 2 weeks. My boss noticed. Meetings started changing. Promotions started being hinted at. I wasn't healed. I was occupied. Sometimes that's the first step out of heartbreak. Then Ethan escalated again. One Monday night, I opened my apartment door and found our old wedding binder sitting on the welcome mat. On top was a handwritten note. I just wanted you to fight for me. I stood there, staring at the sentence for a very long time. Then I carried the binder downstairs toward the trash room. Stopped. Turned around. And mailed it to Caroline instead. I was done cleaning up his version of love. 3 weeks after the coffee shop, Ethan stopped acting heartbroken and started acting desperate. The first real boundary he crossed was my office. Around 9:40 on a Thursday morning, reception called and said a man downstairs was asking for me. Said he was my fiancé. Said it was urgent. I already knew. I asked the receptionist one question. Did he mention blood, police, or somebody dying? No. Then it isn't urgent. Please ask security to escort him out. He left a white envelope at the desk. My name written across the front in the same slanted handwriting from grocery lists, birthday cards, and little notes I once kept folded inside drawers because I loved seeing them. I didn't open it immediately. I took a picture first. Documentation had quietly become my new survival habit. That night, he caught me in the parking garage anyway. He was standing beside my car, wearing the navy shirt from our engagement photos, like he had carefully dressed himself in memory again. I made a mistake, he said immediately. I said nothing. He stepped closer. I was scared, Myrtle. Everything was happening too fast. I thought if I pushed you, you'd prove how much you loved me. There it was again. Thought. Expected.
Assumed.
I finally looked at him and said quietly, I loved you enough to believe you the first time. Something in his face collapsed. He reached toward my arm, and I stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough to mean it. So that's it? He whispered. You can throw 4 years away? No, I said calmly. You walked away. I just refused to chase after you. Security appeared a minute later because reception had seen him head toward the garage cameras. Ethan immediately started crying harder the second another person arrived. Amazing how fast tears become performances when there's an audience. After that, things escalated quickly. Fake emergency texts. Unknown numbers. Messages saying he could see my car from outside my apartment building. Friends contacting me saying he wasn't eating, sleeping, functioning. Then he found out I'd had coffee after a running group with a man named Daniel. That was when the harassment turned obsessive. I filed a police report, saved every screenshot, every call log, every fake emergency message, every photo. Then I paid a lawyer to send a cease and desist letter. It should have ended things. Instead, Ethan mailed me a 4-page handwritten apology, somehow blaming me every other paragraph. You always shut down emotionally. You know how much pressure I was under. We can still fix this if your pride stops getting in the way. I never answered. The protective order hearing happened 6 weeks later. Ethan arrived dressed like heartbreak itself. Soft sweater, tired eyes, calm voice. The version of himself designed for sympathy. His lawyer called it emotional confusion caused by wedding pressure. A regretted breakup. A few misguided attempts to reconnect. Then my lawyer handed the judge the folder. The texts. The office incident report. The fake emergencies. The photos. The messages about watching my apartment. A clean timeline showing one simple truth over and over again. I ended contact. He refused to accept it. The judge finally looked at Ethan and asked, "Were you told repeatedly not to contact her?" Ethan quietly answered, "Yes." "And you continued anyway?" He started crying before answering. The judge granted the order. 18 months. No contact. No workplace access. No approaching my apartment. Outside the courthouse, Caroline stopped me near the steps. She looked exhausted. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "for all of it." I nodded once. "Thank you." Then she said the sentence that stayed with me longest. This was never about love. Ethan just can't stand consequences. That was the last time I ever saw anyone from his family. A few months later, I sold the ring, paid off the remaining wedding debt, and took a solo trip to Colorado because I needed at least one memory from the wreckage that belonged only to me. Daniel and I are taking things slowly now. Carefully. Peacefully. And honestly, that still feels unfamiliar sometimes. Because heartbreak wasn't losing Ethan. Not entirely. The deepest wound was realizing how much of myself I had slowly shrunk, trying to remain lovable to someone who constantly moved the target. Quieter. Easier. Less emotional. Less needy. Less me. I thought I was being patient. Really, I was being trained. The strange part is, I don't hate him anymore. I just finally understand him. He wanted love that chased him after rejection. Love that begged. Love that proved itself endlessly. But the moment I treated his words like truth instead of theater, the entire performance collapsed. And maybe that was the real ending all along.